Okay, so the collapse of Reconstruction. Like I said, it's basically what the documentary of episode 2 talked about, but in more detail in specific sessions, more on Grant, like President Grant's shitty regime, like why he got unpopular, the economic downturn, or the recession that made the Northerners kind of wary and scared of their own lives, so they became more and more disconnected towards helping the blacks, and because of that, the Democrats retook control of a lot of the states in the South. In the documentary, it says specifically which ones. I think 7 of the southern states were recaptured by the Democrats, and that was, of course, a combination of the economic, downturn from the North, a combination of carpetbagger movement that made the North like seem like a bad
Yeah.
reputation,
Good. So,
and yeah, and then finally, it's a result of the lost cause movement in the South, right? Them reminiscing, like thinking back about what the South represents. So all those three things created something we call the redemption era of the South. And from the redemption era became the end of Reconstruction, basically. The end of
yeah.
Reconstruction officially ended at the end of Grant's presidency. When Grant's presidency ended, Reconstruction also died with it. Okay,
Mm.
but let's go over it in more detail. That's just a brief overview. Um, so this we talked about it in the documentary. The new state constitution gave African Americans a right to vote, they argue, but not to hold office. So remember when Tunis Campbell and 30 other blacks
Went to
went to the Georgian like state
Georgia House.
legislature,
Yeah, yeah,
and like they were outvoted, right, 4-1.
yeah.
And because of that, they were arguing, well, yes, you are able to vote, but
Mm.
the Georgian legislature never said you could hold office. You can like go into like a position of government. Well,
Mm.
yes, of course, they didn't say that blacks were able to do that, but what was the catch?
Like they can't do it, but I mean it's outnumbered, so they don't, it won't be it will be meaningless for the black people to be there.
Oh no, no, like the whites also, like the Georgian legislature, the law didn't say that whites could hold
Oh
office
yeah,
either.
oh yeah, yeah. Well, why is it taking control? So it was just contradiction
Yeah, I mean,
for
so like they
black
didn't say that black. Yeah, of course
people.
they were
Yeah,
right that the
yeah, yeah,
law didn't say blacks can hold office, but they also didn't say that whites could hold office. So it's a useless argument. But they use that argument along with other like racist slurs and things like that to discourage Tunis Campbell and the 30 other, representatives to kind of stay. And then after 2 months, what happened? They were removed from office.
yeah. And that was the part that you skipped a fucking long time.
What?
That was the part that you skipped so much.
Oh yeah.
You fucking can't. Yeah, and then
And then opposition to Reconstruction. White
uh-huh.
Southerners who took directions against African American participation in government were in the minority. So this means that most white Southerners swallowed whatever resentment they felt over African American change in status. So basically, what does that mean?
Most of it, so whatever is that they're African American changes. So basically it means that like while like African American black people were having like flourishing with their like freedom and the power authority, right, and the political power.
Hmm.
So most of the white Southerners had to just accept the fact and resent that the fact that like black people are actually having authority as same as mine.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, they had to accept the fact that black
Yeah.
people could now hold office, and
Yeah.
like they're, more or less equal on that in that sense. They had to accept that fact because it's a reality now. But that didn't keep them from hating them and preventing them in whatever way they can from the blacks going into office. So what are some of the ways that the white people in the South prevented the blacks from holding office or voting,
Oh
things like that?
man, my favorite clan KKK.
Exactly. Your favorite clan, KKK, and other like white supremacy, white league, right? Clans. South
Yeah.
Carolina's white clan of the Lotus or something, whatever. But the only thing
I
you
was
need,
yeah.
huh?
I was literally surprised at how KKK was formed with the prestigious white Southerners.
Right, that's the
Like I
thing,
think,
right? That's the interesting thing about KKK is that most of these members of the KKK are not savages, right? I
yeah.
said this in the documentary. They're not savages. Like on the contrary, they were high class citizens, right? One was a doctor, one was a lawyer, as Kobe said,
Mm.
Abram Kobe. He was, taken away by the KKK. They were coercing him by forcing him to not pass another radical bill, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
he said "fuck you." But then with the KKK, yelling at him, he recognized some of them as doctors and lawyers or first class citizens, and
Napi.
that's kind of like interesting, and it just symbolizes how widespread the hatred is. It's not something extreme, right? The KKK wasn't an extreme thing. It was this general consensus of most people in the South, the white people in the South. But they obviously couldn't really do that in public because it would gather too much federal attention, and
Yeah.
it would be wrong, right? It technically is wrong, but like they feel this way, you know. That's why it
Yeah.
was like very popular. And the clan would just like kill people, abduct people. They would like kidnap people, do whatever, and thousands of men, women, and children were just killed. And then they also burned schools, churches, and properties. So burning the schools, churches, and properties is something that the documentary didn't say,
Oh my god.
which raises the question, like, if all of these, if thousands of people were killed, why didn't the government get
Yeah.
involved? You know?
Interfere. Like federal government would do shit about it. Remember?
So at first, nothing, but later, they responded. So this is the answer to my question. I mean, like at first they didn't really do anything, but eventually they did. Um, if you remember in the documentary in South Carolina, uh, like Marshall Twitchell
Yeah.
and his like allies and friends, they were captured. At first, they weren't like they weren't gonna kill them, right? They were like
Yeah.
they forced them to leave the state, leave Louisiana, leave the Red River Parish. That's where they were,
Yeah.
and they were leaving to Texas. But in the way, some clan members intercepted and just fucking killed them all.
Yeah.
And that was like very
The whole Mitchell's family and the Twitchell's family and friends were died.
exactly. And President Grant came in and tried to do something.
But he couldn't do shit.
Yeah, because there's no concrete evidence. There's no specific hard evidence
Yeah.
that that like the
Proof that it was
suspicion
a
people, like the people held in jail, were the people who committed the crimes, since they killed every single witness. And because of that, the North and the South both thought that Ulysses S. Grant went too far into that. He was using powers that he didn't possess, and that's when he got kind of like unpopular, and that's when he became very scared of doing anything to help the Republicans in the South or the blacks in the South.
Mm.
And how did the clans shape politics? Well, they used tactics like forcing, like Abram Kobe, for example, right? Like blackmailing them into not
Yeah.
voting for a specific bill, or blackmailing them for forcing them to leave the office, things like that, using force and violence. And they use
Yeah.
the tactics to win a lot. They actually won a lot of different states. Fear tactics, okay? Um,
And at the end, Kobe went to the Supreme Court.
yeah, so yeah, exactly. In the documentary, Kobe went to the Supreme Court. He appealed, and a bunch of other people, in similarly, also appealed. It was very dangerous, right? Because for you to expose yourself to the public and to share your story, you could very well be killed by the Klan the next day,
Yeah,
right?
literally.
That was the whole point. That's why like nobody really said anything until Kobe.
Yeah.
He was fearless. But fortunately enough, people who were fearless came out that there was a federal investigation. right? So to curtain clan violence and democratic intimidation, Congress passed a series of acts in 1878, 71.
Mm.
So these acts kind of was like to monitor the South, right? One of them was to monitor the South with federal troops, and the other one was what Grant did specifically, martial law, right? To put
Mm-hmm.
troops where the clan, like the KKK and these clans, were active.
Yeah.
And he didn't really use it though because he couldn't.
Mm.
And he was like very careful into using his powers.
Yeah.
And like 10 years later, the Supreme Court that said that these acts was unconstitutional, so it was reverted.
I mean, like you mean you're talking about the bills, right? That was
Yeah,
written.
yeah, yeah. The bills, like I said, that was caused a lot of controversy.
But I think, like, to an extent, like it depends on the era, but also in the northern or south, the tension it switches every single time. You know what I mean? Like sometimes, oh, like, hey, we should care about the black people, and northern was like, since we're economically not wealthy right now, we can't care for you. And the black people are like, okay, okay, then why don't we get us some information? And then the South is like, bro, shut the fuck up. You guys are getting rid of you guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like the tension between is keep on changing.
of
Sometimes
course,
they're helpful,
because
sometimes they're not helpful.
yeah, because it's the same concept as like when you're really poor as a person,
Yeah.
you don't worry about what color my Bugatti is, or you don't worry about what kind of Versace or Burberry I'm wearing. You don't worry about these luxuries in life. And to the northerners, caring about the blacks are very much a luxury. You know,
Mm.
just like how the Renaissance period in Europe, people cared about arts. That's because their quality of life was better. During the Middle Ages, when the Black Death swept everyone, nobody did art. Nobody cared about that because their standard of living was too low. It was the same thing with the Northerners, right? If they were doing quite well economically, then they can have time thinking about what is morally correct for human beings and what is morally wrong,
Mm.
helping the blacks that really doesn't change their lives, their core lives, right? As a white Northerner, you know what I mean? So as soon as the Northerners' economic condition or something changes where they have to worry about their own lives, they stopped caring about the blacks in the South
Yeah.
because that's not their first priority, right? Everyone's first priority is themselves. And for the white Northerners, the blacks in the South is so far away, and also they're a different color, so it's not their first priority at all. So when they
Mm.
have nothing else going on, yes, they will care about them. But if as soon as something like this economic downturn we're going to talk about happens, yeah, the support disappears almost.
Mm.
Um, and then because like the clans was so successful into like forcing the black people not voting or like them not being in office, so many black people were so scared that it would like the clan number, like the members became less and less, and they did less and less things.
Mm.
Not because like they were disappearing, but because there was no need to do anything.
No need
Oh,
for it to do anything.
like like the clans was so successful,
Uh,
they declined in popularity as such high degree of violence was no longer needed.
mm.
This is not a good thing, right?
uh,
And then a shift in political power just means that it went from mostly radicals into Democrats.
Shit.
So like I mean, the whole Reconstruction period it was like a wave, right? At first, it was like very good for blacks,
Yeah, yeah.
for the period of Lincoln at very first, and then Andrew Johnson comes in and it's very bad again.
Mm.
But then like his regime ends, and then Ulysses Grant starts, and then it's all of a sudden pretty good for blacks again, right? But then suddenly Grant becomes like less and less radical, and he has to be careful to keep his position because of his controversy. We'll learn here. Like suddenly it's like bad, less and less good for the blacks again, and then the economic downturn and everything, and the redemption era for the South, it was completely bad for the blacks, and then that's how it ended.
Yeah.
So it was like a back and forth, sort of. And this is the kind of the last stage of Reconstruction where everything went downhill, went to shit for the for the blacks. Scandals and money crisis hurt Republicans. So, um, this is something that the documentary never talked about, and it's quite important. Basically, what was President Grant before he was a president?
General.
Yeah, he was a general, right? He was a war general. And so he wasn't a political figure. He wasn't in the Senate. He wasn't in government really. He was just a military general who helped win the Civil War. So he knew very little about being a politician. Okay,
Yeah.
he's a very simple, honest man. But because of this, he kind of like over trusted a lot of his friends and family. Many of the people in his office, like around him, he appointed not because they're good, but because they're friends or family. Okay, so many of his appointees in his like party and his campaign administration. We call this the administration, right? So the Trump administration just means everyone who works for Trump. The Obama administration is everyone works for Obama. So the Grant administration, the people that he appointed to work for him and to represent him, most of them turned out to be corrupted. They were scamming money from the government. They were not paying taxes, things like that. At first, they didn't believe him. Like, he didn't believe the press. So you can see here, in the beginning, in 1872, a series of long, shimmery scandals associated with Grant's administration boiled over. So basically, a lot of rumors that was saying, like, around his administration, saying that his friends were not credible, they were corrupt. So the first thing that happened is in the New York Sun, like basically New York Times, same thing, like a news article, exposed credits Mobilier affair in which a construction company had skimmed off a large profit from the government railroad contract. So basically, it's just a scandal. It's a scam where the government, the Grant administration, they took a lot of money from the railroad contracts. And a lot of people were involved, but within one of these is the vice president, Schuyler Colfax. And that was a big deal because if the vice president is corrupt and if Grant appointed him, then he's not really credible anymore,
It's fucked up.
And because of that, like the general was saying, like, we don't want this guy. We don't want Grant anymore. We want an honest administration. We don't want any more corruption, right? We want honesty. So what happened? What party is Grant in?
Republican.
Exactly. He was in the Republican Party, right? And that's just his like administration is in the Republican Party. But because his like Republican Party's like reputation got so shit, they had to form a brand new party, the Liberal Republican Party. And what does this do? That just splits the power of the Republicans in half. So it weakened the Republican Party even more by splitting and making a new Republican Party. Right? So this is another reason why the Democrats became stronger. Because Grant's administration got weak and people distrusted it, so they made a new party. And then after that, there's a guy called Horace Greeley, who wasn't really a politician. He was more of a journalist.
Did he told you, did he finish it? The annotation?
Oh, yeah. Did he finish it? Oh, we can check his horoscope. he finished on time.
Oh, we should check. We should check.
All right, let's check. Let's check.
Whoa, 1 minute before. Damn, bruh. So proud of copying my shit.
Uh,
Right there, right there. Culture clashes on pre. Oh,
oh,
and just click it again. Click it again. No, click it again. Oh, hey, reload. Oh no! Oh no! I don't know.
oh my god.
Oh my god. What the fuck? Wait, can you just try to reload again?
Um,
Oh shit.
couldn't preview file. This file is empty. Send an email to Browdy saying you submitted it on time because you thought it wasn't fair for only you to get an extension, but realized the file is corrupted and resubmitted it at right now. Quick. Or just send him the PDF,
Through email.
the email. Oh shit, he just unsubmitted. Fucking dumbass. It's okay. That's okay. Let's continue the class.
Okay.
Um Alright, so Greeley was a journalist, okay? He was a journalist. He wasn't a politician, which is interesting. He was part of the liberal Republican Party. And he didn't want reconstruction, which is interesting, right? And it's not very surprising because for the North at this time, the situation is not going great, and they were getting tired of reconstruction. They just wanted to end, okay? But basically, he lost the election to Grant, and Grant continued to become president. So as you know, in the uh, documentary, Grant was a president by like twice.
Oh, you reelected, yeah.
Yeah, and what was the thing that made him like so popular?
Shit, what was it? There was
He
so
was
much
celebrating something. Remember?
Give me more information.
Hmm.
Oh, what was celebrating?
He was celebrating a victory that he like a thing he did.
Grant. Compromise?
Of what?
1877. Nah, what was it?
Well, he helped getting the Marshall Twitchell and the other Georgian legislatures back into the
Yeah.
back into office.
Yeah, he claimed it back. So
Yeah, and that was so
they were back in
popular
the
that
Georgia state.
it kind
Yeah,
of
they're back.
propelled him and helped him win the next election. So
Yeah.
although that the liberal Republicans didn't really win, and the radical Republicans, like the original Republican Party, still won, it was already like very weakened. So that now in the office, the White House has a real chance of Republicans losing. So because of that, Grant had to be much more careful
Mhm.
into his actions on the second period of his elections for 4 years. Okay, and as if the railroad thing wasn't enough, he had another scandal. It's not him. It was never him.
Yeah.
He never did anything
He
direct.
never did shit. He never did shit.
Yeah, it
For
was
real.
his like people, right? His
Yeah.
private secretary, General Orville E. Babcock. He had a whiskey scandal, millions of dollars, right? But he didn't believe it. And then again, not if that's not enough, the Secretary of the Navy also took bribes from the shipbuilder. And the Secretary of the Interior had a shady dealing with land speculators. So it was just like so many people in his like organization, his administration was in corruption and
For real.
scamming money that like his reputation is completely destroyed.
Wow.
So give examples of corruption in Grant's administration. Well, here's two: the whiskey ring, and there's another one, and then another one is the scandal in the railroad contract. These are just some examples, right? And then, if that wasn't enough to weaken the Republicans, the economic turmoil, right? Too many investments, not enough money to return.
Mm.
So like at this time,
Wow.
the economy
Bankrupt.
was really good actually for the North, but then suddenly there were some like rumors that was happening that made a lot of people scared, and they started to ask for their money back from the bank, but the bank didn't have enough money because before everyone was investing so much, right?
Yeah.
So suddenly the central bank, the biggest bank in America, went bankrupt, and because of that,
Yeah.
millions of jobs were fired. Like people were fired from their jobs. 18,000 companies had became bankrupt. 89 railroads went broke. 3 million workers lost their jobs. So all of these things made a really big economic depression. Okay. Um, and they wanted to reduce the amount of dollars in circulation, right? Deflation, because any economic depression, inflation usually happens not good. Things get too expensive and your money's worth nothing. But they didn't do that. They didn't like reduce the number of paper money in the world. Instead, they they like printed more money because they thought it was easy money. They're like, oh, the bank's running out of money, huh? Easy money, baby. Let's just print some more. But of course, if you if you print some more money, then the value of the money goes down. So like it's useless, right?
Yeah.
But like everyone's attention, especially in the North, was suddenly not on reconstruction in the South anymore. Is on how the fuck do I get my life back to normal?
Yeah.
Yeah. So judicial and popular support fade. So popular support is here, like the North, right? The popular support from the North disappears for the Black South, and also judicial, Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is racist as fuck every single time, right? You can think like, what the fuck? Like there's something that they pass and then it's unconstitutional, and then they pass something else, it's unconstitutional. You know what I mean? It's always the Supreme Court. Like even Dred Scott from before, unconstitutional. It seems like the Supreme Court is the ultimate racist like daddy that like comes in and helps the white supremacists.
Yeah.
Whenever like the blacks get some good rights. So there was a lot of decisions that the Supreme Court ruled on that kind of made the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment a little useless. I mean, not the 13th because slavery. I mean, also kind of not the. Well, so the 14th and the 15th Amendment, they became kind of useless because of the Supreme Court. But the 13th Amendment was kind of useless because of the black codes, right?
Yeah. True.
And the
Because like
prisons are
white folks
obsolete.
literally. Yeah.
Yeah, in the prisons are obsolete thing. we talk about how black codes are a model from the slave codes, you know,
Yeah.
and if you were like uh punished by the black code, you can either like two solutions. You either go to jail or you go to a contract labor, which is even worse than slaves.
Exactly.
Why is it worse than slaves?
Because it's literally the fucking same, like
No,
same
no, it's not
system.
the same. It's actually worse.
They get lynched.
Well, no, because like I gave like an analogy to Aaron when I explained it to him. I'll give you the same one. So basically, imagine you have like you earn some money, right?
Yeah.
And then you buy a MacBook, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then you buy this MacBook. And you're gonna use it as much as possible, right?
Yeah.
But are you gonna take care of it?
Of course.
Yeah, because you bought the MacBook, right? Same thing for a slave. Yeah, you bought the slave. You're gonna use this as much as possible, but you're not gonna just kill the slave because you paid for that shit,
Mm.
right? But imagine now, you go to Emart, right?
Mm-hmm.
You buy like a ice cream, and then you get like a lottery, like thing, and then you go to Emart to exchange it, and then you turn out to get a lifetime supply of free MacBooks forever.
Mm.
Well, now you have infinite amounts of potentially infinite amounts of MacBooks. You get like let's just say you get 5 every month, right, for free. Are you
Yeah.
gonna take care of the MacBooks anymore?
No.
No. I mean, you're still gonna use it, right?
Yeah.
But do you care if it gets dented?
No.
No. Are you gonna buy a case for it? Are you no, right?
No.
Same thing for the contract laborers, right? These people who violated the black codes, they could be sent to contract laborers, which is kind of just forced labor as a punishment, and they're free.
Mm.
They're free from the plantation owners.
Yeah.
So the plantation owners just get them for free,
Yeah.
right? It's basically this easy free supply of MacBooks. Now they don't need to take care of them like they did with slaves. They can kill them. They can whip them until they die. They can work them until they die because
Mm.
they never paid for them. And
Mm.
if they die, they can just ask for more.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
But let's talk about in the slaughter case of 1873. Okay, so the court decided that the 14th Amendment protected only the rights, the rights people had by virtue of their citizenship in the United States, such as the right to interstate level travel and the right to federal protection when traveling on the high seas and abroad. The court contended that most Americans' basic rights were obtained through their citizenship in a state, and the amendment did not protect those rights. So you know what this means?
Can you tell me?
It just means that the Supreme Court is like, all right, the 14th Amendment only says you're protected by like rights
Mm.
if what? Of your citizenship if you're not in America, if you're like somewhere else. Or
Mm.
or if you like travel between states.
Mm.
Like right from Alabama to Tennessee. Then through the travel, yeah, you're protected by the citizenship law. But if you're only in a state, you're within a state, oh, then no, you're not protected. Like what the fuck, bro?
What the fuck is that, bro?
Yeah, I mean, just basically, just bullshit that made the 14th Amendment useless, right? And then another one is reconstruction. So U.S. versus Cruikshank in 1876. So they said that the 14th Amendment did not give the federal government the right to punish individual whites who suppress blacks. So he's saying like the 14th Amendment only gives citizenship. It doesn't say that you can punish the white people who are punishing the blacks because they don't like them having citizenship. What the fuck, bro?
The fuck you mean, bro?
In the same year, and then another case, U.S. versus Reese, the court ruled in favor of the official who had barred African American from voting, saying that the 15th Amendment did not confer the writing of suffrage on anyone, but merely listed a group which they could not deny suffrage. So basically, saying that suffrage, you cannot deny suffrage, right? So for
Mm.
anyone who already had suffrage, you can't deny it. But for anyone who didn't have suffrage before, you can't give it.
Mm.
Just means that black people who did not have rights before, they don't have rights now. Like you can't really do that. But if
Yeah.
for whites they already had suffrage, then yeah, you can't take that away. That's the amendment. They just use like wordplay to fucking make the 14th and the 15th Amendment useless.
Yeah.
And like I said, many different combinations of economic downturn, carpetbag movement, the all of these things plus this the rise of the Democrats, the Supreme Court made Northerner support and the support on the black just disappear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yep.
and then now comes the redemption arc. It's a result of all of these things, and basically what happened is uh, the Democrats were getting a lot of power, and the new election was coming up, right? Grant was no way in hell Grant was gonna get another presidency. Number one, he can't because he already did 2 years, right? So that just leaves a question: is the new president gonna be a Republican or a Democrat? Because both are very strong right now. So they made a negotiation, backroom negotiation. So the Democrats and the Republicans came together, and they made an agreement. So the Republicans agreed to the Democrats that if the Republicans agreed to end Reconstruction,
Mm.
then the Democrats would let the Republicans get a Republican president. So it's a trade for a Republican president trading for no more Reconstruction in the South. Right?
Yeah.
And so that happened. And then what's very interesting about the the election is that Hayes became the president, right?
Yeah.
But he did not have majority of the vote
Oh.
because in America the presidential election is very weird in that it has like electoral colleges and stuff. You don't need to know. All you have to know is that Hayes was the only president in U.S. history that won the presidency without popular vote.
No, Trump and Clinton.
Hmm?
Clinton was overvoted, but then Trump won it. So Trump won the election.
No. Until that point,
Oh, okay.
yeah. And then you have Compromise of 1877, which is what I said, the backroom negotiation, right?
Yeah.
So they're like, you send all the troops back to the north. The South wants some money to build some shit. You get a Republican president.
Mm-hmm.
And then that just meant the era end of Reconstruction. And the South was celebrating the victory because they had something called home rule. They can finally rule their own, right? Because the Republicans didn't control the South anymore.
Yeah.
The South can do whatever the fuck, and that just means that they're just slowly reverting all of the rights they gave to the blacks. So nothing really happened in terms of real equality, but slavery was gone. Yeah, that's true, and a lot of the things that's important is the idea, right? The idea of a future where equality could be possible is still there. Institutions like churches and education, Freedmen Bureau is still there, right? Examples of heroes is still there, so it makes people kind of motivated. But physically, after the Reconstruction, things weren't any better, barely. Okay? And that's it.
All right. Let's go over the shit.
What?
Bro, we literally got 30 minutes left.
Yeah.